Right. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Marathon Podcast series. Today we've got a really nice guest from Soho Street, Abhinandana Gopa. Welcome on.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. How's your marathon going so far?
It's going nicely. The marathon is such an amazing time, not only to distribute a lot of books, but to hear and chant, and by distributing a lot of books or spending more hours distributing books, the hearing and chanting gets more palpable, It's in the air, in the temple and in the ashram, so I've been trying to relish that as best as I can.
Nice. You feel the whole atmosphere in the temple has been affected by the marathon?
Oh yeah, definitely. And the kirtans are more lively, the deities look more beautiful. Everything is amazing during the marathon. Everything just gets enlivened. It's almost like every marathon, everyone always asks themselves, like, why can't we just continue like this for the rest of the year? But then as soon as the marathon ends, of course, that potency, I don't want to say it goes down, but changes. It definitely changes. So the marathon is a special time.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of power to having that focus, isn't it? From the Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasaya Atmaka, like having the whole yatra pushing together for one thing,
Yeah.
Nice. You had any cool encounters on the street? Any nice Sankirtan stories maybe that you could share?
Yeah, well, really the most significant interactions I have are those where I really feel like a person is searching for something, that they're struggling in life. I mean, everyone's struggling in life, everyone's finding it difficult, but somebody who's actually acknowledged that and has had some kind of emotional maturity to kind of acknowledge it and recognize the fact that I'm at a deficit, actually, I'm missing something in my life and I'm looking for something. And then when they encounter a devotee, they are finally seeing it, that the universe or God is making some kind of arrangement for them to meet a devotee and get this book, and they tell you, I think this was really meant to be. So you have interactions like that. I mean, just today, I met this lady, and she wouldn't reveal so much about what was going on in her life, but she said she's a single mom and she's, alone with her son, and they're struggling. And as a foreigner, she struggles to make friends. She's from Romania, and she started crying right there on the spot. And so I invited her to one of our sanghas. And I told her, listen, just don't worry about anything. Just put one foot in front of the other and step into the front door, and we'll take care of you. And she really kind of trusted that. So I hope I get to see her again. So those interactions really touched my heart.
Wow. So earlier you mentioned that, at this time, the deities are more beautiful, the kind of associations more sweet and things like that. You've noticed any kind of difference to the way that you're performing your sadhana, things like that?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's not only a special time because we go out and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books and work a bit extra harder, and not just distribute Prabhupada's books, but for those devotees in the back end services, everyone's just pushing a bit extra, and we see that during December. But not only that, but our sadhana becomes more palpable, it becomes more full of taste, full of relish. And that is something I wanted to speak about and just share something I heard really. Recently, we were hearing a seminar from His Grace Vaisheshekha Prabhu. I think it was at the beginning of November, around that time. And he said something really profound because, of course, every devotee's heard this, that by hearing and chanting nicely, automatically you go out and distribute books and you'll do a bit better. People will respond a bit better. But the way he explained it in this particular case was quite profound. And he used a really kind of relatable term, I guess. He said, when we chant Hare Krishna in the morning, we have to tolerate the benign discomfort of the mind and get over the restlessness that we're always dealing with. And so we sit there to chant Hare Krishna, and the mind automatically starts asking us, how much time do we have left before Guru Puja? Or, how many rounds do I have left? Or in other words, how much time, how many rounds can I chant in this period of time that I have left? And, we're always making plans. And what am I going to do later today? What am I going to have for prasadam? what's my service today, and how is it going to go, and who am I going to be with, which devotees am I going to interact with, and all these different things. How well am I going to do on books? And so, not only the immediate and clear discomforts that we're dealing with, but benign discomfort, he says, is something that we have to tolerate. And so, to really convince ourselves that I'm just going to sit in one place, I'm going to chant Hare Krishna, I'm not going to look at my watch, I'm not going to look at the clock, I'm not even going to check how many rounds I have left at any point. And by doing that, we can create a deeper sense of tolerance that will actually carry us out throughout our day, and will be carried out into our Sankirtan, into our book distribution. So he went on to say something quite deep, and one might say quite esoteric, but I think it should be within our goals. He said that by tolerating the benign discomfort and really conquering the mind in that way, getting rid of all restlessness or tolerating all restlessness, and just reminding ourselves that there's nowhere I need to be right now apart from chanting the holy name. By doing that, you actually you stop becoming tired. You stop being irritable by other things around you, or other devotees around you, or other people that you meet. And ultimately, and this is the esoteric part of this lecture, was that he said ultimately the mantra and the mind become one, and you gain the realization that nothing is real apart from the mantra. And that's something which devotees can easily, put to the side or write off as being beyond their realization and beyond their scope of understanding. But as much as that is true for most of us, at the same time, it doesn't mean we don't have to keep that in our mind and make that a goal of our japa every day. And so I've been trying to do that. I can't say so much to my success, but I've been trying to do that and trying to move a little bit closer towards that goal. And you notice a huge difference. Because by tolerating that benign discomfort during your japa in the morning, then when you go out on the street, or even before you go out on the street, when you go to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, you actually hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And you actually hear the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you actually see Krishna in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, or Bhagavad Gita, or Chaitanya Charitamrita. And again, one thing that we hear over and over again is that hearing the glories of the Lord, automatically we develop a taste, an attraction to Krishna, which will help us on book distribution. And there's another kind of nuance to this that I've been meditating on during this marathon, and it's that some interactions you have on book distribution are where people just walk up to the table and they want a book, they want one of Srila Prabhupada's books, and the super soul within their heart is clearly bringing them to meet the devotees, and it's just so obvious, and it's almost easy. It's like stealing candy from a baby, And so those interactions are really easy. And then other interactions are also easy in the sense that someone very clearly doesn't want a book, and you don't have to waste any time with them. You don't put in any energy there. But then majority of interactions are people who are kind of half in and half out. They're walking by the book table or walking by the devotee with a book trolley, and they kind of make eye contact with you, but they're not totally convinced that they want to stop, but you have an opportunity to stop them. And one thing that I've been meditating on is that when we hear Srila Prabhupada's books vigorously, and not only hear them for a certain amount of time every day, but really attentively hear them and contemplate them and discuss them with the other devotees around us, and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and actually tasting that there's something transcendental there. By doing that, then when someone like that is walking by the table and they kind of don't want to stop, but they're not totally convinced that they're going to keep walking, the devotee who's distributing books, because he's hearing so nicely, his conviction in Srila Prabhupada's books develops, and he's more likely to really make the extra effort and stop that person. Because your faith in Srila Prabhupada's books has gone a bit deeper. And so these people who are just walking by, we might think, oh, okay, anyway, he doesn't really want the books, I'm going to let him go. Or I'm not going to really put that extra mile, let me talk to someone else instead. But actually, because we're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we're feeling that bliss, that we're drinking Srimad Bhagavatam actually, that we're really tasting something deep, because we're experiencing that, when we see someone who may or may not stop to take one of Srila Prabhupada's books, we'll take the extra step to try and get them to stop in a nice way and leave them with a good impression. But you know, that extra conviction is there. So I think that's a really special thing. And by doing those two things, by chanting Hare Krishna really, really attentively, and then by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every day, really attentively and trying to contemplate and go deeper, then when we're there on the street and we're standing there and the mind starts coming up with so many different concoctions and so many different ideas of what we could be doing, maybe I should take a break here, maybe I should go and take prasadam, maybe I should call my mom, maybe I should call it a day and just leave early. So many different ideas come up in the mind constantly. At least I experience that. But because we're hearing and tolerating the benign discomfort and tasting Srimad Bhagavatam and going deeper in our hearing and chanting, and ultimately when we're there on the street, the mind is actually on our side. The mind is also thinking about the pastimes of Krishna and about what we read about that day. And the mind is also thinking, these books are so nice, and I'm relishing these books, I'm tasting them in a deep way. And this Maha Mantra is so nice, I'm tasting it in a deep way. Actually, I need to stay here and continue distributing these books. Something that I totally notice tangibly when I'm reading Prabhupada's books attentively and sufficiently. I notice something that when I see a busy street of people, I'm like, no matter what's going on, no matter how hungry I am, no matter how many things I have to do, I have to stay here and distribute books to these people, otherwise they're going to miss out. But if I'm not hearing really attentively or sufficiently, then when I see a busy street of people, I think, oh, it's way too busy right now. Let me go and take this opportunity to have prasadam or take a reading break or something, make a phone call. So again and again, we hear about this idea that hearing and chanting is the foundation of our spiritual life and the foundation of our preaching, that we can't preach without hearing first. But how often do we really contemplate and think about what that means and what that looks like and what effect, practically speaking, it makes in our life? That's where we have to kind of take an extra step and really figure it out, because we're devotees. This is our whole life, So we should really understand what's going on when I'm hearing and chanting, what's going on when I'm going out and distributing books to people, and what difference does it make, a devotee who's hearing sufficiently and a devotee who isn't? Really practically speaking, what difference does it make?
Wow, that's really nectar. Really nice to hear from her. I think I personally needed to hear that.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami